1.
Hey everyone, welcome to Powering Through Adversity, a series where we talk about how you can overcome adversity in the COVID-19 world.
If you've been laid off or are feeling unsure about your financial situation, we want you to know you are not alone and we want to help.
I'm Sam Kwong, aka Sammy K.
And I'm Matt Diamond, aka Matty D, and we are both reformed CPAs turned veteran recruiters inspired to support our global community that have been economically impacted by COVID-19 and its aftermath.
We hope you enjoy the show. We're going live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Powering Through Adversity. We are here and we have Jess Mason in the hot seat. Welcome, Jess.
Hi, guys. I'm Jess Mason.
All right, this is Jess Mason.
Am
So,
I supposed to introduce myself?
yeah, please do.
Okay. Hi.
Who's Jess Mason?
Who is Jess Mason? I have been in the staffing and recruiting industry for going on 8 years. I am in San Diego. I'm a San Diegan. I have been trying to get outside as much as possible. And I'm very passionate about people. And so I'm here, I think, today because I have a chronic illness that has really impacted my working abilities.
Yeah. And before we get into that, you said San Diegan. I thought it was San Diegan.
You know, it's debatable.
Yeah,
It's really
Will
up there.
Smith.
San Diego.
There's so many other things going on in the world right now. Like, I don't even know if we have time for that.
Yeah. German for Wales blank.
Wales.
And if you know that, hat tip to you. All right. So Jess, powering through adversity as a mission really is to talk about, areas of adversity that people encounter in their lives. One of which is, you mentioned you are dealing with a chronic illness. Can you explain what it's called and maybe what it is for us?
Absolutely. So I have what is called endometriosis, which, if to just kind of in the simplest terms possible, it's when a woman's uterine wall lining grows outside of her uterus, and when it sheds, it doesn't have any place to go. And so the blood pools, which causes like adhesions, scarring, and all these things inside that it's just incredibly painful. And so a lot of women don't necessarily feel a lot, but I'm one of the people in particular who has been suffering since I was like 14 years old. It's been getting progressively worse. And my symptoms ranged from, really heavy cramping to I had migraines for up to 3 weeks out of the month. Chronic fatigue. The other day I could barely lift my arm, and just overall being in a shit ton of pain. So there's a lot there. Endometriosis, there's a lot more to it. And there's a lot more other diseases that kind of go hand in hand. So I actually just recently found out I have 3 instead of 1.
So you found out you actually have 3 different illnesses rather than 1? And
Correct.
Are they under the umbrella of like endometriosis?
They're all very related, interconnected. And the problem with endometriosis, I think this is the biggest issue actually, is there's no cure.
Yeah.
And
chronic,
so because of that, it's really difficult for people to kind of get their mind around. It's very similar to like a cancer in the way that it spreads, the different stages and everything, but it won't kill you. Which
kind of makes it
great, but it sucks because nobody's attention.
Yeah. And Jess, this seems like an illness that men won't really understand. And when I say that, is it because there's from what I know of this chronic illness, it's usually targeting women or? Yeah,
so it's only women. Apologies, I didn't say that. It's only women. 176 million in the world suffer from it. So it's roughly 1 out of every 10 women, but it of course would be very difficult for a man to understand. Not that either of you have had a heart attack, I don't think, hopefully not. But it's been proven to be much more painful than a heart attack for any male viewers. I don't know what else to relate it to, honestly.
And Jess, the question here, did you have this just growing up from zero until the, now, or can you walk us through like what has your life been like through all this? Because this is, the first time that I'm actually hearing about this in full from you. And so walk me through what was, like, what was getting through 18s like, what is it like now? Has it manifested?
Sure.
Walk us
So
through that
it
whole
started when I
process.
was around 14. When I was a teenager, it really only coincided with my periods, and it was less often. But pretty much at least once a month, I would be like on the floor, writhing in pain, not knowing what to do. I would be like out on a run, and then all of a sudden I would like fall and hit the ground. And at that time, especially, this is 15 years ago, 16 years ago, nobody knew anything. Like, it was completely unknown. And so I was written off as just having, a bad period, as I kind of mentioned. I had a male gynecologist. He said, take some birth control. And I believe that hormones make it a lot worse. At least they have for me. So
Mhm.
just for years and years, I just had this kind of repetition of going to an OBGYN and saying this is going to help you, when really it was kind of just trading symptoms for something else. But so essentially it was just through my entire teenage years, it was me having this pain, not knowing where it came from, everyone telling you that it was normal. So I wasn't questioning it. And then honestly kind of getting depressed and getting a lot of anxiety because I thought that I was making a bigger deal of something than anyone else would. And so I never wanted to, speak out about it.
And how
Mhm.
how long, so like the pain started at 14, but how long of a period was it before you actually put a proper label on it? You actually were able to call it and define it in your mind as endometriosis.
Yeah. So when I was a sophomore in college, or maybe I was going into junior year, I was working that summer at Nordstrom, and I had just had a brutal summer. Like, I was on the floor multiple times, like on the sales floor. It was super saying I have to run to the bathroom to like vomit, whatever. Um, I told my roommate like about the summer that I had, and she kind of took upon herself because like I had just been told, like I mentioned, that I was fine. It was just a bad period. So because that was drilled into me, I didn't think. My roommate came home. I told her about it, and she did research on her own. She brought me like a binder full of stuff and said, "I think you have this endometriosis." So my
Wow.
roommate Rosa actually was the one who brought me this information, and I was like, "Okay,
Mhm.
great." And I took it to the doctor, who was like, that makes sense. And I wanted to punch him in the face, but it's how it goes. But even after that, I never was fully diagnosed. And that was 2009. I
Yeah.
was not actually diagnosed until August 28th, 2017, when I had a laparoscopy or laparoscopy or whatever that word is. But I had that and on top of endometrial excision surgery.
And is that the only way to actually confirm that someone truly has it? I don't even know what that procedure is
Sorry,
called.
I missed a little bit.
Is that actually the only way to confirm that someone truly has it, through that procedure?
At this time, yes, you have to have that surgery.
Is that a very invasive thing? Like, what does that entail?
So I was lucky. I had a doctor up in San Francisco who I was minimally invasive surgery. So they used a robot.
Oh, wow.
And it went, I just have like 4 little scars right over my ovaries, my belly button. And so for me, it wasn't. But before these times, and even like in some other parts of the country that just don't have the same type of medicine that the coastal cities do, they're doing like archaic surgeries that are really hurting these other women. All because there's not a lot of knowledge. And I think that's the main thing here is there's so little knowledge being circulated. I feel like I am the one circulating a whole bunch of knowledge now, just advocate, instead of, I guess, playing the victim.
Right. Well, and you brought that up earlier, right? Like you said, I think like 176 million people globally has this.
Correct.
That in itself blows my mind, because
And that's just
if I didn't, right, like if I didn't know you, right? And your story and had heard through your experience, some of your experiences through daily life. And you're probably one of the few that are actually open to talking about it. There's probably a lot of people that don't. Like, how is that even possible that not only the general public doesn't know about what this is, but moreover, like, it sounds like there's an element where the medical community doesn't even fully know what it is. Like, how is that even possible?
I have my share of frustrations with the medical community. Like, God bless, thank you guys so much for everything you do. But in this regard, I do think that I am a little bit more knowledgeable. Most OBGYNs have about a day worth of training on what they believe is endometriosis, is what I've heard recently. And that's the truth. Like, nobody's actually a specialist in that. There's only a couple, or there's, I think, 200 doctors. It's either stateside or globally, either way. There's only 200 specialists in the world. I'm pretty sure it's the world. And I'm seeing one of the best ones in Beverly Hills, but it's not like it's cheap.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it's so unknown. Like, my doctor sees patients on both coasts, and she's constantly busy. It's just like she's one of the only people that's actually doing something.
Jess, this is amazing that you're an advocate for this, because honestly, aside from you, this is the first time that I've heard about this chronic illness, right? And so, like, for yourself, Jess, let me ask you this: like, are there other people that you know experiencing this now that you are an advocate? Is there a smaller community? And the only reason why I ask you this is because I think this should be something that bubbled up a little bigger, because I'm walking through my own mind space. You know, if you have a wart on your toe or like a sore foot, or you never want to be that person to say, hey, you know what, I'm in pain. And you don't want to be, you know, the center of attention, at least in my opinion. Right. But I think now that you're now that you're in this community, are you noticing that there's more people, you know, speaking up about it, and it's becoming more of a thing?
Yes. So it's social media, I will give it this, has really raised our voice up, because I think a lot of women in particular, you're right. Nobody wants to be the person that's like in pain. I was ashamed of it forever. I'm still ashamed of it. Like, I have a lot of body issues because I'm like, why are you fighting with me right now? Like, we're supposed to be doing this together. It's just, sorry, I got a little sidetracked.
No, it's okay.
So yeah, will you prompt me again?
No, I think, well, I'll get from here. You're dealing with, or have had dealt with, a lot of bullshit. And what I mean by that is, imagine when you get these symptoms. You mentioned that you were a recruiter for the last 8 years. So talking about work here, right? When you're in a working situation, correct me if I'm wrong here, when you probably have more sick days than normal people. And I actually start to question, do some of the employees or some of the managers, do they really understand that? Because even when I've asked for sick days before as well, but I almost get the feeling and that I feel bad for calling in sick, but then these sick days are valid, right? So, like, have you been going through that, bullshit for some years now?
Yeah. So with the last company that I was with, I got really lucky, where I came back on knowing the manager prior. He knew of my medical issue prior. And because of that, and just because of the amount of work and production I was able to do, they were able to keep me on. That being said, higher management had no idea. It was only my direct team, the people that I was working with day to day, that were allowing this. Had corporate known, there's no way in hell I would have been able to keep working, which is ridiculous in my opinion, given how much production I was able to do. And for those of you listening, production wise is like the amount of people I was placing every month in a recruiting capacity.
Isn't there a fine line there though, Jess? I feel like you're like honestly being crushed, because here in one hand, I'm just walking through, right? So like, walk me through your mind space. On one hand, there's this veteran recruiter that's really trying to bill and work and put in, put numbers on the board and get people awesome jobs and connect them with really nice places. And then on the other hand, you have this ticking time that never really knows when it's going to spike. And so how do you I mean, like, call it frustrated, call it like frazzled right now. Like, how do you how do you deal with it?
So I have had my fair share of mental healthness. That is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Mental health issues. Um, it's been a huge struggle. Being honest with my managers helped, but at the end of the day, I actually had to leave my career. So it's something that I'm still working on, and it's really sad for me to think about, actually, because I genuinely like love my job. I love the career. I really like my team. Like, there is a lot going for me, and I ended up having to walk away sheerly due to my health. Like, between the physical devastation and the mental aspect as well. Like, I basically succumbed to the elements. I was done. And it's really hard. That has been the number one thing in my mind now. Like, I almost have imposter syndrome. Like, am I even good at that job? I don't, it's so bizarre how much it messes with my head. So I don't even know how I navigate.
I'll jump in there and I'll say you're pretty damn good at that job.
Thank you. No,
Yeah.
but it's really hard for me to navigate. Like, I have self-doubt days every single day, and waking up, like, it's going to be a battle. Hopefully not my whole life. I do hope they find a cure within my lifetime, but from what I know about the clinical trials, and I unfortunately know a lot, they're not looking at a solution. They're looking at a Band-Aid. And
yes, you've been through so much. I'm just counting the years of recruiting, and then I multiply that with a huge factor, since like you obviously have this chronic illness as well, and you've stayed in recruiting for years. You crazy, Jess? Or
but I would argue yes. But it's been difficult. But I mean, like, I've had really good support systems. I found people that I was able to finally
that's
help.
awesome.
And I don't know if I necessarily asked for help, but it was forced on me, which is probably a really good thing.
Let me ask you this, Jess. When you do ask for help, like here's the thing: when you tell me this, I do feel helpless. Aside from, obviously there's more that people can do to play in, right? But when you're reaching out for help, or if one wants to help, no different than in times right now, right? What can one do?
So I think the biggest thing to do is to do research and try to spread awareness. Given the statistics, the likelihood of pretty much everybody will pretty much know somebody, or know somebody that has endometriosis. This person probably doesn't necessarily know that they have endometriosis. They just haven't been able to connect with anyone that has vocalized what they're feeling. So like, being online, just even like #EndoStrong is something that, like, I follow them all the time. It's just telling people stories from around the world. A lot of them are even in different languages sometimes, but just spreading the awareness everywhere, knowing that it's not just happening here, it's happening everywhere. Really, like, I don't want to be like, check in on your female colleagues, because we want to be independent and everything, but like, this is a women's disease, and that sucks just even a little bit more, that we have a lot of times we have to work a lot harder to get the same kind of recognition, and then on top of that, you have this disease that you kind of have to push through as well. So even like, I think I've been trying to be an advocate for like women to be able to get more health days for even just regular period pains, because that's bullshit too. Sorry for my language, but that's crap too. And like, women's health in general is very important. So just educating yourselves on women's health in general, I think would be a really good start.
Yeah. I want to jump back to that, like, one moment, and maybe this isn't like something that was, important or significant to you, but like, I only liken it to, like, I try my best to liken it to my own experience. And clearly I have nothing in my own experience that's even remotely close to this. But, I did have trials and tribulations growing up from teenage years into, really going on into college, where I was working through mental illness stuff, right? And for, I want to say 10 of those years, I was, misdiagnosed as bipolar, but, and I think a lot of people of our generation went through it. But there was also a strong period of time where, like, they didn't put a label on it. And the unknowing part of it was really scary, more than actually just labelizing and categorizing it correctly. And then having it be categorized as bipolar, and then knowing that that wasn't what I was, but I wasn't in a place in my life where I could fight back on that label. I guess I want to go back to the time where, you know, in college, where your roommate was like, I think you have this, right? And then you
Oh
go
yeah,
through the path of
it was
confirming it.
still.
Was it really scary? I guess my question is, was there any catharsis there having a label put to it? Like, even with all the shit that you go through with this and all the pain, was it significantly worse not knowing what it was?
Actually, yes, because I couldn't tell you how many times I've been to the doctor's office or to a hospital. If I get this question one more time in particular, have you tried Tylenol? I will punch somebody in the face.
Yeah.
But it's like you're constantly not being believed. You're constantly saying you're hysterical,
Yeah.
which I recently found out the root of that word is from like a woman's uterus. So
really, like, you had this women's disease. In a way, a lot of the comments that were thrown at you from the medical community were in some ways sexist remarks of like, oh, calm down, you're being hysterical. Like, no, like, I swear to God, you know, it's like the irony there is so palpable.
Yeah, and the worst parts too is then, like, even when I had a female OBGYN, they were almost sometimes even like worse, because if they didn't have it, they're like, just suck it up, this is just a bad period. And like, so women are even sometimes more vicious.
Wow.
Yeah, but I remember when I actually did find out that I mean, when I was like diagnosed in quotations with endometriosis before the actual surgery, like many years prior, I felt a lot better knowing that I had that I could actually tell doctors that. And then I ran into this issue. Doctors didn't even know what it was.
So you're going to the medical community and now you're educating them on what I have. You're like, read up and I'll come back to you in a week and we'll talk about it.
It was just a lot of me crying, because even with that, I wasn't able to get like the pain medication I needed, because they were like, what is she talking about? And so like, I would bring my little binder with me to every doctor's appointment I had. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I have this. I was devastated actually when they were like, we think we can figure out what it is, but we have to do surgery. And I'm glad I didn't do it back then, but it would have been very, very invasive. And I like lost my shit, because they were like, we're not going to let you do this. Like, you're in your childbearing years. And like, another thing you can do to get rid of it is have a baby. That's not true, by the way.
I was going to say, like, did we find the cure?
Yeah, but like, I made a joke with that doctor. I was like, are you propositioning me? And then he left very quickly after that. So I get
going for a quick one.
I know. I'm now at the point where I can go into a hospital. I'll be like, this is what's wrong with me. This is what I need. This is what I need you to do. But it took me years to even like get to this type of confidence. Because I was just, they used to make me feel like I was wasting a hospital bed. Yeah. So it's a lot of that. But now I have all this anger that I can, use in a positive way. But
what do you do? I mean, so like, right, the side effect of a lot of this is, working through, mental hurdles as a result, mental and emotional hurdles of dealing through this experience. What are you dealing or doing to maintain mental and emotional and, quite frankly, be physically healthy? And for the individuals out there, like, let's just say even one person that might be going through this is like, oh, I think I might have this, but they're nowhere near along your path. Like, what would you recommend to them that works for you to kind of, keep those things in balance?
I've actually had a lot of boyfriends come to me like online being like, I think my girlfriend has this. So I just
really?
So like, yeah, wow. So because they're like, pay attention to the symptoms, like, especially if you're living together, they see it. And then they're like, wait a minute, and they'll see something or talk to me or something. And I apologize. What was your question?
My question was around, how do you maintain mental, emotional, and physical well-being or balance? And what would you recommend to someone that, might be going through this, but is nowhere near as far along on your path? Like, what can they do to accelerate to where you are to maintain that stuff?
An online community. Absolutely. Because it's like there's a lot of women out there. There's like they would have to travel hundreds of miles just to see a proper endometriosis doctor. And especially if they're from a small community, get online, start talking to other, we call each other endo sisters, start doing that, because we still share knowledge all over the place. And so it's like, even if they have a question like, hey, my doctor says they want to prescribe me this, what do you think? We can all clap back really quickly, be like, no, these are the terrible things, or yeah, let's try that. Even just having like knowing other people out there have this. It sucks knowing other people have this. Like, I wouldn't wish it on anyone except for, it doesn't matter.
But you're not alone.
I'm not alone. Exactly. And I think that was the biggest thing, because even when I was diagnosed myself, I was the only person I knew. All of my other friends, nobody had the same type of like pain that I did, but all my friends knew that something was wrong. And so getting online, I'm still struggling and trying to figure out the right recipe, but everyone's body is different. Listening to your body, I think, is the most important thing, because I have tried to push myself through so many situations that I never should have tried to push myself through. And it just ends up making you miserable, because you're trying to give yourself to everybody. And this is a lot of people's issue. You try to give yourself to everybody, you have nothing else for yourself. And I think taking that time to really like listen to your body and help it heal is really important. Everybody's different. So like what I do is I go to acupuncture, hopefully up to 3 times a week, but it's usually like 1 or 2. Pelvic floor physical therapy. I go to a number of treatments. I'm very lucky that I found these people, but I've been trying to, meditate, go to yoga, stretching your body as much as possible. I am confined to my bed like 2/3 of my life, as opposed to everyone's 1/3. So staying in shape is annoying as hell. But, when I do have my good days, I get up, I try to run, I try to work out, anything that I can. Like this morning, I got up and I went to the beach with my dog and I was running around. I had a really good day, but I have no idea what tomorrow's going to feel like. So having a good therapist actually is probably maybe the number one thing there.
Well, Jess, from all those remedies that you've listed, I just want to learn more a little. What would you say is one or more of the most effective treatments? Because I know I totally agree with you when you're like, hey, the Tylenol situation. I actually think that Tylenol and Advil, should be obviously diminished, right? If at as much as possible, because I really know that, at least from what I hear and understand, that there's more side effects than we know about that. And you should,
I'm sure.
They cover the symptoms, but they don't really get to the root of what the problem is. And, I only know this because my wife's dad is also an acupuncturist, right? And he says these type of drugs really just, cover up symptoms, right? But the root problem is still there.
So this has been my journey, so I can't say for everybody. Actually, it's interesting because acupuncture, and then Matt, I don't know what kind of dad your doctor is. Your dad is.
He's a foot doctor. He's super helpful here.
Right. Great. Well, I stopped kind of believing in Western medicine for a little bit, because I was just not hearing the right things. Like it was, and everything was just, hey, take this. I can't tell you how many times doctors have tried to send me home with like really strong opiates. I have Vicodin that I keep here for like when I need it, which is unfortunately quite often. But when I need stronger stuff, I go to the hospital because opioids are bad. But I have found most relief from Eastern medicine. The herbs are disgusting. I don't know what they do, but I feel a little bit better. And maybe that's crap, but whatever. Acupuncture in particular has like changed the game.
Really?
I had anxiety like crazy the first 2 times that I went to it. Like I was like, you're making me stay here. One of my other diseases that I kind of mentioned, I have something called interstitial cystitis. I have to pee like 45 times a day, even if I don't like have to pee. It's really annoying. But like the thing of I'm trapped here and I can't get up because needles are in me. Horrifying. I was like crying and I called, but I'm pretty sure I said, Dad. I don't even know if my dad was there, but it was not great. But now I've learned to really love it. I do have really bad migraines that are associated. So it's really helped take the relief there. And now that things are opening up again with lesser COVID, I'm very excited to be able to go back. But
Glad you gave it a try. Yeah, because acupuncture has been around actually for over 3,000
forever. And that's why I'm saying Eastern medicine. And Eastern medicine too, they actually focus on women's reproductive health. It's like a thing they are, proud of. Really love that. So I've been looking more into their medicine just because they've been studying it for so much longer. And really focusing on the female as like, a human, which is great. Another one of the, I think a huge issue of this is being a female too, because it's just one more thing that men don't believe. Yeah. Which is, I always feel so guilty saying this to men, but that's another one of the issues.
It's the lack of understanding and lack of education around it.
Well, and I don't want to be a pain in the ass. Well, now I'm happy to be a pain in the ass. I did not want to be a pain in the ass before.
Matt, I don't even I know part of it, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. I know part of it is a lack of education. Part of it is a lack of understanding, but I feel as if it's something that we will never truly understand. And the reason is because just going back to the community, right? The Endo sisters, unless you have endo and you're kind of talking about it, right? It's like, you don't really understand. It's kind of like you have to have been through it, right? And so
I want
how could Matt and I be like an endo brother is kind of what I'm asking, because I find it hard to it's frustrating to me that I feel like nothing frustrates me more than not being able to put action in myself to help a situation, right? And ever since I was young, if I have a bad grade, I'll work 10 times harder, right? If I don't have enough money, I'll go and shovel snow, right? And work, and I know I could bring $1. But when it comes to these situations, you could probably tell my tone, I'm kind of getting frustrated because I feel like it's one of those things where when it comes to a chronic illness or health, you're diagnosed and you know that you have it, you kind of just have to bend over and take it, right? And so how could Matt and I, or other males, how could males in general be endo brothers, or maybe they can't, right? Because I think it definitely comes through better from a voice where, if you're posting about it online, people will be like, hey, you know what, Jess, yeah, great, right? But I feel, correct me if I'm wrong here, if Matt Singer, for example, posted and said, hey, pro endo, it would not have as great of an effect.
I think his audience is a little different for sure. I think that would be great. I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it's spreading awareness. I'm kind of thinking about work with this and just as far as a support system, and I go back to being open with my team as much as possible so that they kind of know and are more empathetic versus kind of taking the stance as, why isn't she here? She's bringing down whatever. That's hard to say on a macro level though, because a lot of this information is not even available in a lot of other countries because they don't view women's rights are still a huge issue. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think it's a complete answer.
Again, just kind of sending information out there.
Look, so from my, I guess, view, as I listen to this, I don't think I have the complete answer here. I don't know if there is one, but I think on the one hand, I wouldn't know about this unless you stepped off the ledge and made yourself vulnerable and said, I don't care what people think about this thing that is very clearly private, to educate myself, right? You almost fell on the sword. That was almost in a way an altruistic act to help others that will come after you, right? And so however there can be, what's that?
But I did read a lot of Ayn Rand. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a way, right? That's kind of what you're doing, right? So I mean,
that was not intentional. You're right. I kind of had to. I was really forced into it because I was backed into a corner. And what
Yeah.
when you're backed into a corner? Like I don't know if it's rage, I don't know what, but I finally was like, I have to say something. Like,
Yeah.
fuck this. Like, I know I'm a really good worker, even at 50% capacity. Like, let me do what I need to do my way. Which I hate saying there's benefits to COVID, but there may be a benefit in more working from home and more realistic solutions for women. Because even with childcare, like the working life is just, it's not really meant for people. Like it's I don't understand. It's such a weird, like, how did we get here?
I like what Europe does. They do it right.
Yeah.
France really has it going on. But yeah, I don't. Keep going.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say. Like, that's the female perspective. Like, without you jumping off the ledge and giving us the opportunity to receive the information in an unbiased way, and not giving a fuck, excuse my language, about what our response was going to be, like, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be having this conversation. This podcast wouldn't be happening. You would be, quite frankly, still in the closet, quote unquote. But the other side of the coin is, and I think this is the thing that the men can do to be, quote unquote, endo brothers, is getting their own ego out of the equation, and having an attitude, where we can be humble enough to receive it, you know?
So I heard this from both of you. The frustration, I can hear it, like, with other people, and it not that it makes me laugh, but it's like, that's funny. You guys get frustrated in such a quick time, whereas I've been frustrated for however long. But that's, I noticed the most. So I ended up having to move home just because the financial burden of it was so great. So I moved home, and so I was traveling with my father in 12 years. I was in the Bay Area for 12 years. Now that I'm back in San Diego, he actually got to see kind of what was happening to me all the time. And his frustration was affecting me because he was like, why can't I fix you? Why can't I fix you? And I think with a lot of men in particular, your first instinct is to fix. And that's just, I wish I could give you like all of the tools to fix me. That would be fantastic. I would love that. But that's one of the most frustrating things. And I could totally see how that's like, I had to beat this door down multiple times. I had to raise my voice multiple times. And I think every woman that's kind of shut, a lot of times they won't beat down another door. They're just going to remain shut. So I don't know the answer, guys. I wish I did.
Are you at all optimistic on medical developments? It sounds like it's slowly, creeping along, maybe in the right direction, maybe. Like,
I have a holistic doctor now, so I have positive days and I have very negative days. There's days that I wake up when I'm in, like, I can barely open my eyes because I have a migraine, and then my whole body hurts, and on those days I don't feel very good. Another statistic of endometriosis is 1 out of every 4 women with endo has contemplated suicide. And I'm ashamed to say that I have as well, even though I shouldn't be ashamed. But like, on those bad days, that's very much a real thing. And so I was in bed for 2 weeks last month, and I couldn't move. And during those times, it's really hard. So.
Well, I think as it relates to the whole suicide point, because suicide is a very real issue, and there's a lot of things that bring people to suicide. A lot of times what ends up, preventing someone from, or actually going through with it is by having someone to reach out to. So if there's one thing I would say that is actionable here that I took from this, and I say this to you, Jess, but I really say it to anyone, like, reach out to, like, get your, like, that's your advocate.
I wouldn't say men to go to women and be like, how's your period? Because that would, I think, really
like,
weird. But
find someone for the women out there that might have this, like, find someone in your life that is close enough that this can be your person that you can call in the worst moment, and you can rely on them to pick up the phone. It's kind of like a sponsor. And
Jess,
Yeah.
I'll put my name out there, and Matt
yeah,
as well. Like, if you ever need that, we'll throw a podcast. It doesn't even have to be live, you know. Anytime you get into like this shady space, let's call it, right? Pick up the phone and call the Canadian or the
I love that.
American.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that I've been with my dad to kind of been like, at a certain point, he knocks on the door like, "Are you okay?" So I'm very lucky in that regard. But I absolutely will. I thank you guys very much. But yeah, community, I think absolutely should be like the takeaway from this.
Well, Jess, on the other side of things, like I'm actually, yes, there's a lot of things that you can't change or don't have control over with this, but on the other side of the spectrum, would you say that this has made you a stronger person in any way? And if so, you know, how so?
Absolutely. Like I don't think there's any way it couldn't have. I'm still here. Um, I don't like feeling sorry for myself, and like that's not a good use of anyone's time. So I've been just trying to, I took all the energy that I had to try to turn this around and make myself an advocate. And I think, you know, everything that I've gone through, the letting myself be vulnerable, like putting my my surgery photos online, like actually talking about my feelings and like real feelings that make people uncomfortable. It was me making people uncomfortable that made people start listening. Like, I know this is a lot hard for a lot to hear, especially like period talk, but it shouldn't be. And I think making a lot of these taboo subjects not taboo anymore is really important in this.
Kind of like veganism.
Yeah.
You know, where like veganism is nowhere close to endo. But I only bring this up is because, you know, call it the taboos or call it whatever. There's a group that is willing to find out more information. And hey, once you have the information, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's another group that I've recently, you know, encountered with that they don't like, I'm not pro-vegan by any means, but I'm trying to dabble into it. But there's another side of it that's just like, you know what, I don't want to look into it at all.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I think Sam is throwing a dig at me right here, because there's a documentary out there, everyone, called Earthlings, that I have yet to watch for the last 3 months. And Sam quietly, every time I'm like, "Hey, dude, you should check out this this episode or whatever," he's like, "Hey, have you watched Earthlings?" Like, this is really about me. Right.
Well, I
now.
just I wanted him to watch it, Jess, so I could have a conversation, be like, hey, what do you think? And the reason why I asked him is because I would say it's the biggest challenge for me, because in my culture, right, in the Asian culture, the whole dish that you eat is chicken, right?
Yep.
The whole dish that you eat, like, here's the dish, it's called chicken, eat it, you know, and so I'm thinking in my head where it's like, okay, or like the roasted pork, for example, right? Like you have this whole thing there, and so it's almost like, call it a luxury or whatever. But then I dabbled into it because I thought about it. It's kind of similar to religion. You're kind of born into something, and all of a sudden you're like, poof, you're Christian, poof,
Yep.
you're Buddhist, right? And so then I started looking more and more into it, and that's where I asked, hey Matt, you know, watch this, right? Because like I grow from carnivore, you know, a very carnivorous family, right? We eat meat like no other. But now I've kind of cut it out, and I asked myself the question, hey, if I don't eat it, am I going to die? No. If I don't eat it, you know, are animals going to be a little bit better? Yep. If I eat less of it, right, is, you know, going to save more water? Like I found out more, again, essentially why I'm talking about this is that I'm digging, and I found out more, for better or worse. And do I love meat? Yes, in certain ways, but am I willing to risk, you know, something else, you know, at the stake of something to taste good for myself? No. And so, Matt, what do you think?
I don't know. I got to watch the documentary. That's
All right.
ask me in a month.
Yeah.
I think you're right in a way.
Yeah.
Once you start, like every person, every man that I've come across, every woman that I've come across, that doesn't have this, the second they really dive deep, and I've been really like elementary on it on here, but once you start diving deep and like really understanding where the pain is, or so this we didn't actually mention this, endometriosis is invisible, you can't see it. So I think that once you're able to kind of represent it in like an artistic fashion or give somebody a visual, once they're able to see that, then they're like, okay, they'll buy into it, they'll read it a little bit more. And it sucks that people have to buy into it, but once, like, the more you know, the more you're wanting to learn.
Yeah, and I don't even wish this upon anyone, Jess. I think sometimes they have to kind of feel like a zap or feel the pain. What I mean by this
I had a machine.
Yeah.
I would hook every single one of you up to it just so you could feel it for 3
You've definitely
seconds.
said this. You've definitely said this.
You have a machine that you could feel it?
She said she wants one. It's a torture machine. That's what she's talking
but
about.
only like for 3 again, I wouldn't wish it on anyone in the, like, this has been false labor pains. Oh my God, they're the worst things in the world. Pregnant women, I'm so sorry.
Well, I think that's where part of the empathy comes from, where I don't feel like a lot of us actually have, you know, the empathy is because we don't feel it. And the closest thing I could even, you know, attribute to it is that, you know, 3 months ago or 2 months ago, I hurt my back really bad and I could barely walk. And that pain where it's like, if I moved an inch, it was this super sharp pain. It was in San Francisco. Matt, you knew about this as well. And I think that doesn't even, that's not even 1/10 or 1/100th of what endo is, at least in my perspective, right? But that even triggered me to, like, that was the first time I felt some chronic pain, right? Where I was like, oh shit, I'm in a wheelchair. Right. And then all of a sudden your whole perspective changes. I was like, oh, this is what the grass looks like. This is what the trees look like. Right. In a wheel, because like when you're in a wheelchair, everything all of a sudden moves 10 times slower is what I thought to myself. I was like, holy shit. Like, so I've been like running around, you know, and so
it's, you know, whenever I wake up and I feel good, I take full advantage. Like, it's like I don't even know what 100% feels like anymore. I don't know if I ever will, but I know how good I can feel, and I know how bad I can feel.
But your perspective has changed, right? Because when you have a good day, like you might, Jess, like I'd love to hear your thought on this. You must see a lot of people that, like, when, you know, lack of a better word, like they're complaining or they're, you know, saying this sucks or that sucks, but then you must be on the fence where you're like, you know what? Count your blessings.
I used to, because my anger was maybe more misdirected. Now I don't, not to say anyone's pain, everyone's suffering is still suffering at the end of the day. And so there's certain times I'll give you, so this is something never to do. My best friend of many, many years called me. She'll admit she feels really bad about this. She called me one time. She was like, Jess, I just felt a cramp. I think I know what you're going through. I wanted to stop her. But I mean, at the same time, like, everyone's pain is their own pain. And so I was kind of glad she had a cramp one time so she could feel, you know, what women feel. But I try not to, like, put myself on a competitive playing field in that regard. I don't think that it's fair, because you never know what's going on behind somebody's eyes. And I think a lot of times the mental illness portion can be a lot worse than the physical, because at least I know the physical will, like, end at some point, or
it'll subside.
It'll pass.
And I do want to jump in here, because there was one image that you threw out there a moment ago that I thought was, like, as soon as you threw it out there, I was like, it triggered like a very real image for me, which was the comment about these are false labor pains. And
you just had a baby.
No, well, so any man that ever listens to this, who has a partner that had a kid, and I have a 7-month-old at home, like, that shit is real. And if you're telling me that's what you have, like, you've never even painted that picture for me and I've known about your story for a long time. Or maybe you did, but the fact that, like, I never actually witnessed what it's like to have a baby. What's that?
I said I found men can't handle a lot.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
We're weak.
that's
We're
fair.
weak.
We're gentle flowers, you know.
Our egos try to make up for the strength that
Delicate.
women have, but we will never be there.
Yeah. No, but like, just I had like this coming to like Jesus moment right there where I was like, false labor pains. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like that is, I've witnessed that. I've
Yeah.
witnessed labor pains.
Yeah. I just don't do the screaming
Horrible.
because I've been there and I kind of know how to breathe through mine. But like, there's still circumstances where like, I'm like, ow, and I'll like bend over or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I've gotten the screaming down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Jess, like talk to us, like in finalization for a few things, like this community, this online community, Endo Sisters, where can viewers like even including Matt and myself and other listeners, where can we find out more about this information?
So if I think most people are probably on Instagram these days, but there's hashtags to follow for sure. Hashtag 1 in 10 is really important. Just like the number in 10. That that's the one that shares stories from around the world. And there are a little bit more graphic pictures that they'll put out, but I think it's really important to look at them to kind of get a visual of what we go through. There's a lot of artists that have been doing work about like, it's like barbed wire that's like lining your uterus and like kind of what that it's better visual representation for people that can't actually feel it, I think. And just looking at the people's stories, a lot of women do side by sides of like, hey, this is like what I look like and you see, and then this is what you don't see every day. And so it's really, there's a lot of symptoms I didn't go through, and a lot of them are not great. So it's a good information as far as like the full disease, because it is a full body disease.
What about like nonprofits or areas to donate? Is there even something to donate to? Is there anything like that? There isn't. There should be.
Mm-hmm.
There should be, but this is so new still. You know how we were talking about the Band-Aids? All the clinical trials are all Band-Aids. I don't know the right place to send the money, because the places that are being sent money from it, I don't believe that they're using it for the right resources, if that makes sense.
Yes,
from my personal research. I don't want them to be developing drugs that, make depression or migraines worse, when a lot of these women are suffering with mental health already. So I will have to do research, but I know that there are a couple. I think Project Yellow is like our color. I think Project Yellow is a good one. But as far as other organizations, I don't really know of any that are large. I just know of small. Like, and this is really just to help women fund surgeries.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe if it's even as simple as that, like a fund that helps women. I mean, these aren't cheap surgeries, and probably a lot of times insurance isn't covering it.
Insurance
even I mean, even funds that like, or having a fund out there that collects, and that actually pays for medical bills or something like that. I mean, I know that has been I mean, I'm just getting creative here. Like, where's the opportunity to potentially help?
It. There's a lot that people can do, and I'm like, I wish people would like understand and get passionate. And it kind of like, you guys have seen me and known me, and that's the reason Otherwise, like that's still how the rest of the world is right now. Like, I'm loud about it, and I'm not shy anymore, but too many people are. And maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll make a website.
You sound, assuming you're up for it and you have the energy. You're writing a book?
Well, it was more like I was just like writing my feelings down, and then all of a sudden it was like my whole life started like coming out, because I was just mad. I was like, meh, 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 and then I didn't actually stop typing.
I would read
it. Do it. I have to finish it if I do it for myself. It needs to be known. Funny anecdotes. A lot of self-deprecating humor, but that's fine.
I know we're kind of finalizing here, but I'm asking a question here that I should have asked like at the beginning of this. Do we know where this comes from? I mean, you said there isn't a cure. Is it like a genetic thing? Do we even know?
No, we don't. And that's one of the things that really sucks. There's like multiple things that could technically be factors, but it's nobody's really been looking at it holistically,
Mhm.
and like all these other things. But like people are even saying like BPA could be a contributor. A lot of women's tampons have chemicals in them, and they're not just like, which what the fuck, but like
Yeah.
so there's a lot of different things that we've been putting in our bodies, pesticides forever. Like the amount of women that have this, there has to be some type of cause. Um, I don't even like Marilyn Monroe had it, by the way. So it's like
Really?
this has been for a long time. And just
But
like
we weren't
that's
even ever
that's
tracking the
she had like
numbers.
depression and pill problems because of it.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You broke up. I can't hear you.
Oh, I was gonna say like I mean, I don't even think there was any body or a group that was tracking the numbers of this. I mean, we didn't even know it existed until recently. So it's not like you can say, oh,
Yeah, no,
like autism, like, oh, the rates have tripled or whatever it was over X amount of years. We can't even say that about this. It
Mhm.
just, we now know it exists.
yeah,
That's it.
The
right.
silent creeper.
It's unfortunately it's because of it's a women's thing. It was ignored for a long time, but you know, we're rising up and we're being loud, and so that's
Yeah.
been really helpful. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, right now it's just too new, I think. I'm putting a lot of information together. Like I have all the information for like infographics. If all the women in the world were to be in the United States that have endometriosis, we would fill up more than half of the country.
Damn.
So, as a visual for everybody. And that's only of the people that we know. A lot of communities that don't have as much money, they don't ever report it. And Black people in particular are never treated or diagnosed as much. Like it's like 1 out of 10 Black women will actually get a proper diagnosis. So who even knows what the real numbers are?
Which goes into a whole other subject around like the systemic like racism that we're dealing with, and
Yeah,
we don't have time to.
there's not enough time ever. It's
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
Justice for Floyd.
Yeah, I'm going to rally on Saturday.
No. Jess, you're an awesome person and you are super strong, and I will never be half of what you are. Like, honestly keeping what you're doing, and you know, anytime you come across anything, I'll throw myself on there, and I'm sure Matt as well. Like, use us as resources, use us to vent, use us any way you can. Yeah.
Totally.
Except we can't make kids, all right? But kind of tied there, right, Matt? But
I already made one. I'm good.
I know. I was about to be like, "Is she pregnant? Is Mandy pregnant?"
Yeah.
Is it on the way? Are you guys gonna have kids? Sorry, I just like totally switched that conversation. Like, are you gonna have kids?
No worries.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it feels good when I have like a platform and stuff to talk on. And I'm not gonna shut up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Build this community, you know, Jess, and you know, well, Matt and I will be here to support.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we're here for you. Thanks for coming on. We're glad that we could share this with everyone. Do you have any final, words that you want to put out there to the world?
Just be nice to each other. Understand that you're never gonna necessarily understand what anyone else is going through, and it's a hard world, and I think there needs to be a little bit more compassion, and that's straight across the board right there.
Amen, sister.
Amen, sister. Thank you everyone for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please feel free to share, like, and subscribe to our channel via Linktree. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast sources, as well as YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and good luck everyone.